good morning, and welcome to Morning Medley number 163. There's no joke or reference for the number 163, so I'm just going to go ahead and start. Spring Street. Good morning, Ava. Good morning, Jordan. Good morning, Isidora. Good morning, Umbe Blader. Good morning, Zodiac. Good morning, Daniel S. Hope everybody had a good Tuesday. Mine was okay. I'm trying to get back on a healthy path. I didn't have a particularly healthy weekend, diet-wise and exercise-wise, so today's me trying to get back on the wagon. I'm doing okay though, Isidora. Thanks for asking. Thanks, Liana. Welcome back, honey fawns. Good morning, Darius. You're on time. A lot of people are on time today. Good morning, Dar. The song's called Spring Street. Hope everybody had a good Tuesday. Welcome to Wednesday. If you haven't liked the stream or the video yet, please remember to do so if you are someone who enjoys the streams. Dar, the name of that song is 78 to Downtown. Oh, happy birthday, Isidore. I didn't even know. 78 to Downtown is kind of Isidore's song. But happy birthday, Isidore. Also, Dar, that song is on the same EP as Love Letters. Hope you have some good plans for your birthday today, Isidora. I always have to quickly relearn the birthday song every time it's somebody's birthday. Stop resolving with my recorder, making it sad. I don't know what that means, Dar. But, I'm sorry if it's a sad birthday. You're welcome, Isidora. I'm getting you a music theory book for Christmas. Oh, he says dark. Oh. I'll have Ace Combat characters explain it to you so it'll be more engaging. Did I forget to turn my... Oh, no. Thanks, Cyber. Oh, everything's falling apart. Sorry, I forgot to turn my thingies off. My buzzy notifications. I apologize. Now my head's cut off. Oh, that's a weirder angle, but I'm into it. It's the Shoto clone chords, right? But instead of having it resolve that way, instead of having it just repeat the same, then I would go to... I hate how, like, I can repeat a lot of chord progressions from maybe older songs, right? Older songs that I wrote when I didn't quite have the chord vocabulary that I do now. And it's just like they all sound so basic now, and I want to put extra stuff around them, but the songs are made. The songs are already released, so it's too late for that. But I do like that. Yesterday I was doing this kind of like... Remember that chord progression? I wish I could remember the pattern I was playing it in. Crap, I have not been looking in the stream at all. Rice, veggies, chicken in a pan. Sounds like a plan for chicken eating man, says Cyber. Okay. Oh, we're just talking about food. I feel like the stream chat very often kind of just devolves to food chatter. I want to remind anybody who's in the stream to like the video if you like the video. I mean, if you don't like it in here, you don't have to like the video, but if you don't like it in here, I have no idea why you're spending your morning with me. Cannibalism, huh? It goes... it's so confusing for my hands. It's two very different patterns. It's because I'm having to use my thumb more than a few times. There's this thing, and I'm about to make a DDR reference, so if you care about DDR, this might be for you. In that scenario, Ava, maybe I do. Maybe I do. I mean, starvation is starvation. Okay. I feel like in piano playing, you've got 10 fingers. I'm referring to thumbs as fingers in this analogy, I guess, if that's a problem for you. Just tune out for the next 5 minutes or so. So you got 10 fingers. Typically, if you're going to be efficient about like melodies and arpeggios, you want to not use the same finger more than once, you know? Like if I'm going to be playing... Oh, that's nothing. That's just a roll up. But typically you're going to try to alternate your fingers, you know? Even if I'm just going to do it with just 3 fingers. It's kind of like you roll them and like bring your thumb around so that you're not going like this. You try not to use the same finger more than once. You're trying to alternate the fingers. This is very, very useful in DDR. DDR only has 4 arrows. You only have 2 feet. You got 2 feet. You got 2 legs. If a bunch of arrows show up, it's going to be harder for you to like stamp them all out with 1 leg than it would be to kind of alternate between your 2 feet. And the reason for this is because if the arrows are coming at a certain amount of speed, what you're doing is if the arrows are coming at a certain speed, in a DDR, step chart is what they're called. If there's 2 arrows, 1 arrow and 2 arrow, you're going to be exerting force on 1 leg to hit 1 arrow. And then for the next arrow, you can be exerting force to put this foot on this arrow. But it's less energy than exerting force to lift this foot and now place it on a new thing. You're just having to place, as opposed to place, remove, place. And in piano playing, it's really a lot of the same mechanical theory as far as like motor skills. And so when you're going to be hitting notes, it's a lot easier to place than to place, remove, the same finger. And a lot of times in my arps, arpeggios, I'm going to be referring to them as arps for this analogy. A lot of times when I'm doing my arps, especially with my left hand, you'll notice that I'm not using the same finger more than once. I'm usually like walking up, walking down, or I'll have some type of weird pattern going on, but I'm very rarely hitting the same one or using the same finger more than once is a better example. I might hit the same note, but I'm usually not going to use the same finger to hit it. Now the reason this gets a little bit hard is if I'm playing an arp, and I go like that, and I still need to go higher at this point. As you can see, the only finger I kind of have left is my thumb, and it would be hard for me to hit this and then pull the rest of my hand over that note to hit the extra. So I have to use my thumb more than once. But obviously, as you can imagine, doing this kind of jumpy thumb movement ruins kind of the watery flow of the rest of the notes. And it's also more exhausting for my hand, and it's harder to stay in time with the music when you're doing it. And so something like this is a lot easier than playing this. And maybe it's just an efficiency thing, but I do want to try to get better at being able to do that. Anyways, Linbei says, do you have any arps and songs that you don't alternate on? Not anymore. This song? Wait. That used to be what it sounded like. It would go. I can't even do it now. And it just was exhausting, and so I ended up changing it to. And so spreading out that arp so it was a little bit wider, and now I could use not only alternate fingers but also alternate hands. And so instead of hitting or I alternate between the hands, and so it can be played a lot faster and like smoother than hitting this or this. So no, I don't think I have any songs anymore that have arps without an alternation. Good question though. Pomna is one of my favorite rhythm games, says Daniel S. Word up, word up, word up. Hello, Red. Welcome back to the stream. It looks cooler too, says yeah, word. I think that having things be able to flow smoothly in a song is what's most important to me. And a lot of times, I'm just filling in space. So, for example, in the song Liminality, I'm going to speed through it so I can get to the point that I'm trying to talk about. For this part in the song, I wanted to make it so it wasn't just stabbing chords. So instead of going, I wanted to add some flow into it, or an arp, so it would go. But there's a few different ways I can do this arp. I can do it this way, which is kind of a up and down flow, right? Or I could do it this way. Which is more of a up. It's only up. It's a little bit faster than going. If that makes sense. So I'm just trying to fill in space again. Also, another kind of another thing about the arps that can be changed, another like factor or parameter, I should say, of the arp that can be changed, is which notes you're hitting, because a lot of arps are just chords, right? If I just hit all the notes from the chord, it's so there is a chord in there. All I'm doing is I'm changing the frequency and timing that I hit the notes. But a lot of my arps, as I've shown in the past, are just octaves with a note in the middle. A good example of this would be key lime. So key lime goes. The bass line of that is an octave. Play them also in an arp formation instead of like a chord. Again with the harmony and the chords. 3 notes in this arc though, but I could do that with this this pattern that I was just playing. So there's only 3 notes in those. 1, 2. Ugh. It sounds so empty by comparison because I have a 4th note in there when I actually play it. Redbox. It's because Omni has a rad collection of Oswald stuff, says Maddie. Oh crap, I must have missed the first half of that. Good morning, Oni Bubble. I almost said Oni Bubble. Hope you had a good birthday, Oni Bubble, by the way. It's Easy Door's birthday today, Oni. So happy belated birthday, Oni, and wish Izzy a happy birthday if you don't mind. Hello, Tote. All right. Back to the tunes. I don't know. Wow, they have actual blood in them. Fruit flies, huh? Okay. I technically haven't started the medley today. I love those chords. I love just those 2 chords followed by each other. Ava? Oh, whoa, I thought Ava said they paid their vet bill. Hello, Penelope. Sorry I didn't see you come into the stream. I'm glad that you like dimmer switch so much, Ava. You know, Ava, when I was a kid, I always wanted to live in a house that had dimmer switches. I thought that that was like a sign of wealth. All of like, when I was growing up, a lot of like my white friends always had like, it was never just an on or off. They had this world of options of like a little fader where they could fade in the light by dimming it and brightening it. And to be fair, I don't think that I would get that much use out of it. I don't know how often I would have the lights on dim in my room. But I just remember as a kid thinking that that was like new age, like space technology that must cost like millions of dollars to be able to have dimmer switches. That and air conditioned garages. I thought these were things of the rich. I don't know. Maybe they are. Maybe they are. Maybe I'm not that far off. I haven't seen an air conditioned garage in a while. I haven't seen any brokies with cool garages. Okay, this song. Wait, is Liana in the stream? Remember USB outlets, says Alpha? Are garages ever cool? Yeah, some people have air-conditioned garages, Alpha. I've seen it. I felt it. It says she had her own computer and an IMVU account. Like, whoa, hey, must be loaded. Yeah, that is kind of middle-class stuff, Ava, for sure. Listening like a podcast. Oh, I can make it more podcastly. Oh, I'm gonna put on a pop filter on my mic, Liana, so my next production stream I'll sound like a podcaster. else, I suppose. I got a meeting coming up, so I'm going to be quiet for the rest of the stream. Nice chatting with y'all. Aw, thank you, Ava, for even being in the stream. I appreciate you, and I'm glad that I got to play Dimmer Switch for you before you went into your meeting. Ba 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 Bassoons remind me of gooses or geese. That's what it makes me think of. Yeah, that's what it makes me think of. It makes me think of Nobodies. Oh my god. Oh my god, that's way better than mine. Yeah, it does sound like Nobodies. Why? That's a good question for Yoko Shimomura. Something menacing about a bassoon. Menacing, yet goofy. Which, I mean, I guess could be used to describe Nobodies. Goosebird Gump says, Maddie, instead of Jumpin' Jaybird. I like sliding down into notes, and I don't do it nearly enough. I'm always sliding up into notes. Slide up, slide down, slide into notes. You have to bend up. You have to bend up. See, that's a bend downward. And then you go into piano. Interesting. I'll come back to that later. Thank you, Gabriel. It's about bending down. It's about bending notes down instead of up. I feel like it's very natural for me to, or for a lot of people to bend up. Bending down doesn't feel as normal to me, and I think that is what gives that particular riff that I was playing. It's like stab. Alpha's asking if I play accordion. I do play accordion, but I did trash my only accordion, so I do not any longer own an accordion to play. So I'm expecting my skills to dwindle on that. Yeah, so in this riff, wait, it's a bend up, and then bend up, then bend down, bend up. I mean, it's a very subtle thing. You probably don't notice it. It's probably not that important. But to me, as the person performing, it makes a huge difference. That's a riff that I wrote like last year, and I still haven't found a song to put it in. But I do like the. I just particularly like the. Because that's a very like. To me, like beboppy, jazzy riff. I mean, I don't know any jazz theory, but it has like a very jazzy, skip bop feel to it. Gabriel says, "Can I try to write a melody to it?" That is the melody. That is the melody. You can try to write a second melody on top of that if you want. You ever use the pitch bending thing on the keyboard? That's funny that you would say that, Cyber, because I did that a lot in yesterday's morning medley. People kind of tuned out for the morning medley, which is fine, but because it was an hour long. So if you missed yesterday's stream, or you were just otherwise occupied in yesterday's stream, I had a very, very long morning medley, and for a good portion of the morning medley, I was playing this piece. I started off playing Gucci Gang, but I was using very subtle detuning, so it sounded almost modulated. And then I ended up doing that. And adding a bass note to it. Yeah, I did it in I did it in, it's a very young Gucci. Yeah, Alpha. You take the main notes, so these notes. Anyways, yeah, it's a very young Gucci. Um, okay. You've definitely heard that song before, Alpha. If you were in yesterday's stream, I played it in yesterday's stream, but it doesn't exist in a recorded fashion. I mean, you've heard the song Gucci, I assume. You've heard it. Okay. Adventure Boy 22 says, "Yo, what up? Hello, Adventure Boy. Welcome to the stream. I hope you've had a wonderful Wednesday thus far. We're an hour in, so there's a little bit more to go. But I haven't even started the medley yet, truly. Not truly. But Alpha was asking what song that was, and it was just a variant on Gucci. Whoa, hold on. I can go. No. Oh, I can't do it. It has to go there. If I was going. And then I go. That's weird. That's hard for my fingers to do. It's hard. It's hard. Just take my word for it, guys. What I'm basically trying to do is going. trying to do like some type of over and under variation that like changes keys halfway through. I'm trying to get better at key changes. I'm trying to figure out how to change keys without knowing what keys are, or figuring out like what the names of them are. How long are these streams? Are they officially 2 hours long now? They're officially 2 hours long now. Sometimes I end them a little bit early, but as far as them being 1 hour, we've left 1 hour. We've left 1 hour behind. May I ask an odd question? Gabriel, as long as it's not too personal, ask away. Where do I go from there, though? I go up here. Have you ever noticed that your music progresses sideways? I'm not sure how to explain this. I feel like you don't take 90-degree angles, but instead go to where you'd want, like stairs. Oh, wow, this analogy is wild. I'm gonna try to understand this. Gabriel says, this is especially so during improvising, I feel like. Gabriel, who knows a little bit more about music than I do, I mean a lot more, Gabriel says, that your music progresses sideways. Like it feels like you don't take 90-degree angles, but instead go to where you'd want, like stairs. Okay. I'm completely lost, Gabriel, but I'm determined by the end of this stream to understand precisely what you mean. So you're saying when I play piano... Wait, are you asking me a question? Okay, Gabriel, have you made an analysis of my music and you're asking me if I noticed something about my music that you've noticed about my music? Or are you asking me to answer that question with information on my music? Okay. 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 Gabriel has noticed that my music progresses sideways, especially when improvising. I'm trying to take the analogy and not take it too literally, because if I take it literally, I'm going to think of them progressing sideways on a piano, which is the only way you can progress on a piano, because it's a two-dimensional arrangement. Okay. I'm not sure how to explain this, but it feels like you don't take 90-degree angles. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Okay. I know this might sound stupid, or maybe like it's asking too much, but can you elaborate, Gabriel? No, there are no too few words. Give me all the words. I would like to be able to understand this. Maybe please give more definition of sideways, says Mance. Yeah. Okay. I guess it is literal. You would play a part in one key, then slowly play it in a lower and lower keys until you would do something else at the bottom. Oh, okay. Okay, I think I understand what you're saying. Right? I'm asking you. Okay. I'm progressing sideways, like stairs, to get to where I want to be. Yes. Now, what I'm about to say is going to be a little bit different as far as the terms I'm going to use, but I feel like, Gabriel, it might be what you're talking about. A lot of times in my music, in order to open up avenues to myself, in order to open up harmonic avenues, um, when I'm trying to open up harmonic avenues, there are certain keys that I hit, and I don't mean like keys like A, B, C, D. I mean keys like piano keys, like the literal buttons on the keyboard. A lot of people only hit the white keys because the white keys are a little bit easier to reach. It feels more natural hitting them, and if you hit all the white keys, usually nothing sounds out of place or weird. In the same way as if you hit all the black keys, nothing sounds out of place or weird. But when you start mixing them with each other, it's kind of difficult. So what I would do for a lot of my earlier songs, which typically use all of the white keys, is I would move them up or down. So I would take the whole chord and move it down. So I would get that. And then I would try to play the same melody and play it down lower one note. And so I would just move an entire song down. And that way I would kind of become more familiarized with like different chords, different keys, different notes. So a lot of the songs that you guys hear, maybe not so now, but when I was like earlier making songs on piano, a lot of those songs that do have like weirder chords, like over and under. Not for example over and under, because this was written in this key, but songs like this, it would have started in a key that had all white keys. For example, right now when I'm playing this song, and then I move it here. See that? All of these are white keys. Much easier to hit. So I would take a song that has all white keys, move it down or move it up, and this, since it has become a technique that has helped me widen my vocabulary, Gabriel, it's also a thing that I use in actual songwriting. So not only is it a tool I use to widen my vocabulary, but it's an actual technique I use in performance and in playing and in writing. So a lot of my songs operate that way. In more basic ways, like if you think about love letters, all I'm doing is taking this chord and I'm moving it around the piano. I'm just moving the same chord around the piano. Same thing with 78 to Downtown. Just moving one chord around. And when I do that, when I take this chord, which I hit quite a bit, and I move it down, I move it up, and I move it here, and then here, and then here, and then here, and then here. And I'm like, oh, that's a chord that I would have never hit. And even those notes next to each other kind of look weird and feel weird, but they're the same chord. I mean, not the same chord, but they're the same note orientation or whatever as hitting this. So now this exercise, for example, has added this chord to my vocabulary. And now this is a chord that you hear in a lot of my songs. For example, that chord is in Old Enough. It's right there. And so, yeah, when you're saying that I use it a lot in my improv, when I'm writing songs and like improvising over them, it's really easy for me to like be playing around in a certain space. I'm going to use the word space instead of key because I'm not exactly sure of the definition of a key. So I'll play around in a space, and then if I'm trying to get somewhere else, I'll just move this entire playground down on the piano somewhere, which is why this kind of sounds like this. I was taking like the same thing that I was playing, and I just moved it down, which is a technique to learn other keys, but it's literally in the song. Another one that's like that is this song. You just move stuff around. And then, of course, maybe the most frequent or most popular version of that is in double lutz, where I go. Just moving things up or moving things down sometimes open up some other places where I can go. But you referring to it as like playing sideways and not using any 90-degree angles, I get that. I get what you're saying. I get it now. I think that a lot of chords that I have grown particularly fond of, like that chord. And when I mean fond of, I just mean that it's a chord that crops up a lot in my music. It's not that I like it more than any other chord. It's just it's very comfortable to play, and so I kind of gravitate to it from time to time. I think that a lot of those chords come from me moving much easier chords up and down the piano. I think just 2 streams ago I was talking about this chord, or more simply this chord, or even more simply this chord. Sorry, I'm trying to dumb it down as much as I can. So I was talking about this chord, which is the main chord in the song Embrace. This chord. And so I have, over the course of writing music, done so many things around that chord. I've done so many things around that chord. So I've taken this chord and I've added a bass note to it, which is basically just me taking the lowest note in the chord and playing it on a lower octave. So it sounds like this. And then I have started adding octaves to the bass note, making it sound like this. So I'm playing this note, this note. And then I kind of bumped it up from being able to do that to playing them like a little closer together here. No, sorry, here. And then around, what is this, 2 years ago? Oh, that's good. That feels good. About 2 years ago, maybe 3, 2017, is when I first started doing, like, there's a music theory term for this, voicings. Like, taking a chord like this and rearranging the notes. A lot of people don't spend enough time with voicings. Now, take into consideration that the person telling you this right now, I don't really know a lot about music theory, so take it with a grain of salt. But voicings, from what I understand them to be, are just rearranging notes, right? A piano repeats itself. If anybody looks at a piano, if you look at really any musical instrument, you're going to see a pattern, right? There's going to be a looping point. Like, you take this chunk and you kind of copy and paste it until you get to the end of the piano. Now, a really interesting thing about that is, if you play a chord, that means a lot of these notes are going to repeat. Like, this note is the same note as this, which is the same note as this, and the same note as this, and the same note as this. They're all octaves of each other. So if you play them all at the same time, no real harmony is happening. It's kind of just the same note, amplified, higher or lower. So because of that, that means that if I wanted to play this chord, let me play a simpler chord. Oh, no, let's play this one. If you want to play that chord, you can play it like that, or you could take this note from that chord and move it down, and that's still the same chord technically. You can take this note and you can move it down, say here. Still the same notes. You can take this note and you can move it down here. but if you listen closely to them, they sound very, very different. They contain two very different feels. One is a little bit more disjointed, has a little bit more low end, and the other one is kind of this clean, orderly, crisp chord. So, that being said, about 3 years ago was the first time that I was taking a lot of the chords that I liked, like this chord, or this chord, or this chord, or this chord. Oh, that's prettier. Yeah. So I was taking chords like that, and instead of playing them all crisp and clean, I was starting to crunch the notes together, if that makes sense. So instead of playing this open pretty chord, I would take this note and move it down here. So I'd be playing this. And then I would take this note and move it down here. So I'd be playing this. So basically this turns into this. Same chord, different voicing. And so the voicing gives it a different feel. This is a little bit more crunched together, so it has this kind of, I don't want to use the word dissonant because I feel like that word's used a lot in music and it's not always accurate. So instead of using the word dissonant, I'm just going to use the word condensed. So the notes are packed a little bit closer together and it has this kind of tight feel versus this, which has a very open feel. Again, this, open versus this, tight, close together. So I started playing a lot of my chords tight and way, way closer together, which is why in a song like Love Letters, instead of playing this, I'm playing this. Very, very subtle difference, guys. Very subtle difference. Trained ear can hear it, but for me as a performer, as a piano player, playing this is very different than playing this. In the same way that if I took this chord, which is really, really important to me because I played a lot in the improv, this chord progression, basically the two chords are this and this. The first chord is that same chord that I was playing, the condensed one, right? This is its open form. This is its more condensed form. Open, condensed. So I start with that condensed chord, and then I go down to, oh my god, I'm gonna have to open this chord back up to figure out what it is. So this, oh man. So this chord is, well, that's what it sounds like played, right? It sounds like this. But if I open that chord up, it's actually, it is this. So this chord, if I move this note down an octave, right? If I move this note down an octave, it becomes this. And if I move this note down an octave, it becomes this. And I add an octave to the bottom, it sounds like that. So a lot of my chords became a little bit more crunched together to give it that like jazzy, crunchy feel. Now, I add that, or I compound that with arps, or arpeggios, so I'm not just playing one crunchy chord and another crunchy chord, I'm playing this kind of like waterfall pattern. And it makes it sound a little bit more condensed. Now, once I started condensing chords, it changed how I was like looking at the chords also, right? Because if I play this, I know what that looks like, but if I play that chord a lot more condensed, like this, it looks and feels completely different. And once I get used to that hand feel, like this, I can get used to playing a lot of chords like that, like this, 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 this. Ooh. Lots of weird over finger action happening there. Anyways, point is, good question, Gabriel. I've forgotten what the question even was now at this point. This makes me wonder, says Gabriel, you could probably make a song entirely out of single chord with different distribution. This could be a really cool sound, says Gabriel. This is a really cool sound. It's something that I've actually done, Gabriel. I'm going to get to that in a minute, though. Maddie says, all this crunchy talk is making me hungry. Maybe I'll order some bakery treats. I haven't been to a bakery in a minute. That's for me. Um, if we're really magic, even though musically playing notes too close together can make it sound sour. How is this happening? Hmm. First, let me address the first thing. So playing chords in different arrangements or in different with a different note in the bass changes the chord sound entirely. And this is something that I've done in very small ways. Like if you think about the what is the song? Keyline, I think. I guess it's not Keyline. Is it? What song is that? Is it? Was it Catching Up? It's not that song. Now I have to find it. Now I have to figure out what song it is. Did you answer the question, says Cyber, about the number of games you've scored for? I mean, I'm currently... I can't talk about them, but there's 2 of them. There is a specific song that and I know it ends on this chord, and I'm trying to think of what it is. I thought it was it? Basically, Gabriel, there is a song where I play the same chord twice, and it gives it a different. It gives it a different, like harmonic quality. I feel like there was one that went. Whoa, wait. Oh crap, did I. What song is that? Hold on. I can't find it. But I know it was basically this chord twice. And so it wasn't into the I can't find it. I don't know why I can't find it. But I will say that there have been several times where I've done it in a song where I've moved up, where I've moved down and just changed the bass note on something and changed the quality of the chord, I guess, is what I'm trying to say here. Change the quality of the chord. Sorry, I'm like playing through my entire song. But playing through my entire song is looking for like the specific one. But the point is, or the point that I'm making is, there are a lot of times where I've taken, for improv specifically, like because I don't really know a lot, of jazz theory. And so what I do is if I'm trying to find new possibilities for a chord, I can play the chord higher and lower, right? As simple as doing like this to get to someplace different. And I think that sometimes I'll play like the same chord or the same melody, and then putting a bass note under it or moving the bass note around can change the quality of the chord, because the bass. There's a really, really good like Adam Neely segment where, because he's a bass player, and he talks about how bass can shift the like harmonic quality of a chord. I'm going to use Rhodes piano because it sounds like a sine wave and it's a little bit more clean and sustains longer. But if I'm playing that chord, which is what it is. No, yeah, is what it is. I can play this note underneath it, right? That's the bass note. That is the most, it's the bottom note of the chord played in the bass. I'll play down here. Is what that sounds like. That's it with the chord a little bit lower. But if I move the bass note around and I play, say this, it has a different sound. This is also a chord. But if you look at the chord I'm playing in my right hand, it's the same. I'm just moving a bass note around underneath it. It's another bass note. This chord, and I change the voicing of it, so I take these two notes and I move them down here, so it changes from this into this. Now I can play some more bass notes underneath that. I can play this, or I can play this, or I can play this. This is the last chord of the Gucci chord progression. So you see, you can take the same notes. For example, this, but just moving those chords around gets you this. This is the same as this. But as you can hear, they do sound slightly different, They do sound slightly different. You can even move it somewhere else. So like instead of playing it like this, you can play it like this. Again, this. And this, same thing, just different voicing. So a lot of times when I'm kind of just vamping, which I know is a thing, that's a real term, just kind of like vamping around on the piano, I'll play one chord maybe down here, and I'll play like weird other versions of it up higher. Now, a really good example of this in one of my songs would be Jumping Jaybird, because in Jumping Jaybird, I repeat the same chord progression twice, but all I do is I change the chord voicing. And it sounds like it's two completely different parts of a song. So the first run through goes like this. Now I'll do it a little bit slower. This is the first chord. This is the second chord. This is the third chord. This is the fourth and fifth chord. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now, watch what I do the second time I play through it. This is the first chord, right? If I take this note from this chord and I move it up here, it becomes this. Again, this. Same chord, just different voicing. So, instead of playing, that's my first chord, I'm moving this note up higher, so it goes, and I repeat that. So, this is the first chord, changing it to this. Here's the second chord, changing it to this. chord progression, all I'm doing is changing the voicings of the chords. So you can technically play the same chord progression, I don't know, like 5 times, but just change the chord voicing, and it's always going to make it sound a little bit fresh, or like you're going somewhere different. Or maybe, even if you're getting very inventive with the chord voicings, it'll make it sound like you're playing a different chord progression. But really, all you're doing is moving around the same dusty old notes. Hello, Kid James, and welcome to the stream. We are talking about voicings. Goodbye, Cyber. Assuming Cyber's still on the stream. Oh, boy. Okay, this next song, since Kid is now here, is going to be, well, it's called Reflection Pool. But instead of simply playing Reflection Pool from beginning to end, in the spirit of Gabriel, who's been like having me dig pretty deep into my personal methods and theory when arranging music, I'm going to talk a little bit about how there are a variety of theories, right, for piano playing, and how my theory is maybe a little bit more physical than it is mathematical and, well, let's just say mathematical, because music is math. So my theories are very physical and visual. I'm looking at things happen on the keyboard. While music theory is very sonic. You're hearing things happen on the keyboard and drawing conclusions from what you hear. If you look at Reflection Pool, it's hard to see because I know I don't have like a nice, fancy, clean, top-down image of my hands while playing, but these are the first 2 chords. Now, these 2 chords aren't necessarily similar. I feel like, I don't know that much about major and minor, but I feel like one's a minor and one's a major. But since I know very little about that, we're going to move on from that. I'm not going to spend too much time on major and minor. But these 2 chords, to me and my personal omni theory, are the same chord. Because my hands are the same when I'm playing them. The spacing of the notes, to me, is identical. Now, spacing of notes being identical physically does not mean they're spaced the same tonally. Oh boy, oh boy. Okay, so what I mean when I say that is if I hit these 2 white notes, you can see kind of roughly, even on the piano, that these 2 white notes are right next to each other. There's nothing in between them. So to me, in my brain and my hand, these 2 notes register as being right next to each other. They're neighbors. Now, these 2 notes are not right next to each other because they have a black key in between them. If you go up, they're separated by this. But my brain and my hand registers these 2 white notes as being right next to each other. There's nothing between them. They're neighbors. Because to my hand, this and this and this and this feel exactly the same, even though the spacing between those notes tonally is different. Oh man. Please let me know if I'm boring anybody else to death. But these 2 notes is, what's the word I want to say? Interval. The interval between these 2 notes, or the space between these 2 notes, is greater than the space between these 2 notes. So theoretically, this and this are 2 different intervals. To my hands, they're the same. So when I play this, and 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 this, and this, and this, and this, those are all the same chord. Now, if you open up a music theory book, these are not the same chord at all, right? They're very different. Some of these are major, some of these are minor, some of these are like, I don't know, diminished or whatever, who cares? But they are different chords. But to my physical theory, my personal theory, they are the same. So a lot of my songs will have what I perceive to be the same chord. When I'm playing this, this chord and this chord are exactly the same. And these 2 chords are also the same as this, and this, and this, and this, even though they're not. Now, what does all this have to do with anything, Omni? Why are you talking about all this? Who cares about your own personal theory? Well, it's important because when I'm writing music, a lot of people, when they write music, especially if they have a backing and education on what music is and what theory is and what sounds mean, they will incorporate that theory into their technique. Like they'll go, oh, I should throw in a major seventh here, or I should, do a half step down, whatever here. They have a vocabulary that informs how they compose. Since I don't have that same vocabulary, I can't do that. But I do have vocabulary of how I compose. For example, and again, bringing it back home to reflection pull. Reflection pull goes. Now these are 4 different chords. First chord, second chord, third chord, fourth chord. In my brain, these are 2 chords. The first chord moved down. The second chord translated with a different voicing. Is this true? No. As far as music theory, like the written word is concerned, that's rubbish. That doesn't make any sense. But as far as my brain and my hands are concerned, those were both the same chord, and this were both the same chord. Because the way that I play them and the way that I perceive them physically and visually are the same. So, that matters when it comes to, say, if somebody says, Omni, why'd you change keys there? Oh, or this is a cool key change. Omni, oh, you, wait, somebody said, even earlier in the stream, somebody said something about a major and minor. But I can't remember the exact thing, but they'll say, oh, I know, who was it? Was it Dar? I think it was Dar that said, I was playing the birthday song for Isidora. I was going to. They kept saying, hey, stop ending on a minor key. It's making it sound sad. It's making the birthday song sound sad. And obviously, I don't have the vocabulary of major key, minor key, major key happy, minor key sad. That's not how I perceive the music. So that information or that comment didn't do me a lot of good in my playing or my performance of the birthday song. Now, when Dar says that it sounds kind of sad, right, when I end on this. When Dar says that sounds sad, I'm like, okay, I get that. I can hear how somebody would hear that as sad, but I don't necessarily hear it as major and minor. I hear chords typically as like interesting, triumphant, haunting, goofy. Like that's how I hear harmony and rhythm. I'm going to pause that really quick because Gabriel says, isn't the black keys called semitones and are only half steps, therefore the 2 white keys would be the same? Yes? Gabriel, I think. You can just use a French press to make coffee. That's basically easiest, says Leanna, which is part of a different conversation. I apologize, Gabriel. I would like as a tangent that the most important part of music, says Gabriel, is listening. Oh crap, your comment got lost. It got swept away into the void. Hold on. I would like as a tangent that the most important part of music is listening and asking yourself what sounds good and why, rather than dry paper theory. You should give yourself more credit, says Gabriel. Oh, that's a really nice thing to say, Gabriel. I wouldn't say sad, it sounds mellow, says Gabriel. Kid says, I wanted to just pop in and say, hi, I'm about to make cookies, catch y'all tomorrow. Goodbye, Kid. James, thanks for being on the stream, and sorry I got so choked up in my own personal theoretical explanation of the song Reflection Pool that I didn't actually get to play it for you before you left, but I hope you enjoy your cookies. It's more rich than sad, says Gabriel. Okay. I just think, yeah, to me, I'll see chord progressions as interesting. For example, the Witchy song, which is maybe the best example of this. The Witchy song sounds like. Now, this chord right here, to me, sounds haunting, right? Haunting. Like a horror, maybe not like an actual scary horror, but like haunting, you know? And something about the rhythm of it sounds goofy. Then it becomes more comical, right? Like if I was playing it a little bit more like somber, with like less rhythm to it, I could see how somebody would be like, "Oh, this is like maybe a horror film, maybe like a very self-aware horror film." I can see how somebody would think that, but when I add the rhythm to it, it becomes very bouncy, which gives it its goofy feel. But in that same, like on that same side of that coin, right? That is the rhythm, not necessarily the harmonic information that I'm giving to a song. So while they are very like textbook things, right? Like major, minor, diminished has this type of sound. A major ninth has this type of sound. A minor 11th, if such a thing exists, has this type of sound. Um, all of that stuff matters. All of that stuff matters. A lot of times you get so, think about it like a car. Something really interesting about a car, another analogy, something really interesting about a car that I think about all the time is your gas pedal. It's not like you have to press, like a foot in order to make it go. Your gas pedal is like this far from the ground already. Well, the floor of your car, but stay with me here. It's like this far from, let's say, I don't know, 2-3 inches. I'm just pulling stuff out of thin air here. 2 or 3 inches is not a lot of space, right? So if you take those inches and you were to divide it evenly on the speedometer, it would be pretty wild because you would see that like each 10 miles or each 20 miles an hour is maybe an inch or less, probably less than an inch actually. And so when you're thinking about driving, it's like the amount of pressure that you're putting your foot on the gas pedal is so minuscule in order to change your speed as wildly as from 100 miles an hour to 60 miles an hour, for 60 miles an hour to 45 miles an hour. It's a very, very subtle difference. And even your steering wheel, right? If you're on a 2-lane highway without a median, the difference between like life and death can be your hands like this and your hands just like this. It's such a small difference. But when you're in a car, you're kind of having to do like a lot of micro adjustments, like simultaneously sometimes. So much so that we'll all get in a car and be like, yeah, driving's really easy. I can practically fall asleep while doing it. I can text while doing it. When actually what's happening is a lot of very complicated micro mechanics, right? When you're playing a song, there is obviously, oh, this is major, this is minor. But there's a lot of micro things happening, right? Like there's rhythm, there's how softly you press the keys. There's the speed at which you're hitting melodies. And if you're thinking about integrating all those, you can change and morph the mood of a song, or just make the mood of a song more rich, right? If we're thinking about something like Over and Under is a good example of this, right? Over and Under goes, let me start at the middle. Very bouncy, jovial, then it gets harder. So soft, and as it progresses, it gets faster, but it stays soft. But the lower I get on the piano, the harder I hit the keys. You're just having to do a lot of micro mechanics, right? How soft you're hitting the keys, what rhythm you're hitting the keys, what keys you're actually hitting, the speed at which you're hitting the keys. It's a lot of small adjustments that can to being very sad and haunting, right? Very, very subtle changes can mess up everything or improve, whatever, you know. It's all relative. But since I don't have the um, terminology, right, or the theoretical knowledge for a lot of these things, I have attributed my own theoretical terms and recognitions for them. And some of them I haven't recognized at all. They might as well not exist, right? Like I can go to a music theory class and they might talk about the rhythm at which I'm hitting the sustain pedal in the bottom. That's a completely other part of the piano I haven't talked about at all, the sustain pedal. And so, yeah, I agree with you, Gabriel, in that there's a lot of complexity. Sometimes people will split into major, minor, or happy and sad. But just like I was talking about earlier, I can think of chords as being open or thinking of them as being crunchy and, you know, condensed. And that, even though we can't define if this is being happy and this is being sad, sometimes there's kind of like unspoken emotions or feelings for these different interpolations or interpretations of the chords. And I don't know. Some of them I like a little bit more than others, right? I like it when my chords are a little crunched up. And I also like when there's a weird note inside of a chord. So there's another song that I have that goes like this. Just going to play an excerpt from it. I made this song a long time ago. And the thing that I changed very, very subtly in the song halfway through its lifespan was instead of going like this, which, by the way, I'm going to tell you now, this is the same chord played in 3 different places. So, place 1, place 2, place 3, place 2, place 1, place 2, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. So, same chord being played in a few different places, and I was like, what if I move one of the notes so it isn't the same chord, it's a different chord. So instead of playing, I'm going to play it higher so you can hear the notes. Instead of playing this, what if I played this? Right? So the difference is and this. I don't know if you can hear the difference. I'll play it in a different chord. And this. The difference is this and that. I'm moving this note up. So now, instead of hitting this, which again is the same chord, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 2, I'm going to move one of the notes higher. See how it's slightly different? I'll go back to the old version. This is the first version. Second version. First version. Second version. First version. I don't know if you can hear. I did it a lot of times, so hopefully you picked up on it. If you did, dope. If you didn't, don't feel bad about it. It's a lot, I'm sure. It's a big arpeggio. But just changing that one note does slightly alter the character of this chord to this. Very, very subtle change, and I don't know if that makes it sadder or happier, but it does change the quality of it. And if I went to, Berklee School of Music, there I'm sure are theoretical terms for what's happening here. They're like, oh, instead of going with the major ninth, you went with a flat seventh or whatever. Sure, I'm sure there's a word for it. I'm sure that there's an entire class on it, but I don't know that. So I have to attribute my own theory to what's happening on the piano in front of me. Nielbo says it makes it more serious in their opinion. Okay, I like to hear other people's interpretations of what a change can do. I feel like it just makes it maybe a little bit more dissonant. There's that word dissonant again. I don't know. It's been beaten to death, but yeah, it changes it very, very slightly. Flat 7 Up. I have had flat 7 Up somewhat recently. I mean, 2 years ago. In-N-Out Burger has 7 Up. Okay. Not gonna get too sidetracked. Food stuff. Maddie almost got me. So, that being said, you know, applying your own theory to the music that you're making, this and that, two different chords, and I don't know the names of them, so I just have to attribute feeling to them. Like, this chord feels like this chord feels like that. And the way this comes in handy for me when I'm making music is a very, very good analogy for this. Okay, so this is going to take an actual personal anecdote from me. So I used to, in my old job, I used to take care of this blind man named Ray. His name was actually Meredith, but he went by Ray. Anyways, I took care of this blind man, and as you can imagine, his world was very different than mine as somebody who can see. He was the first blind person, I would say, that I had to spend an extended period of time with, right? A pretty large majority of my, life during the time I was working with him was spent around him. I was at his house every morning. Sometimes I would even be coming back in the evening to make sure everything was all tidied up. So, in his world, empathy is difficult, right? Oh my god, this analogy. Empathy's hard, right? It's really hard to put yourself in other people's shoes. And I had been tangentially around blind people throughout my life, and I kind of thought I got it. I was just like, yeah, you can't see. I've seen the Daredevil movie. And then, being around him all the time made me realize specific things, like small things that people don't think about. It's like, oh, if you're blind, you can't watch TV. You know, there's something very obvious and on the surface like that. But another thing that you don't really think about, or that I didn't think about, sorry for projecting, a thing that I didn't think about is how one of the things he would do is if there was a little bit of something left in a container, he would just throw it away. He would throw it away. And me, from my sight-filled world, was always like, what a waste of money, you know? He knows there's extra stuff in there because I told him that there's extra, shampoo in the bottle. But something that we don't think about, or something, again, not to project, something that I didn't think about, was exactly how visual the task of getting the last bit of anything out of a container is. When you're upending something and it's not coming out, but you know it's in there, you kind of have to see where it is in order to know how you're going to adjust the box or bottle or whatever, the container that the thing is in. And so, him being blind, once it got to that part of the bottle, he was like, I'm not going to spend, 15 minutes going like this in my bathroom, blindly, literally, waiting for something to happen. So just toss it out. I can lose, 70 cents or whatever it is, depending on the substance and the size of the container. So that's one thing. There were a lot of things, but that's just one thing that I remember seeing and going like, oh, his world is completely different, and I didn't ever think about that specific thing. So when it came to tasks like cleaning the apartment, washing dishes, cooking things, watching or consuming television, listening to music, navigating a smartphone, all of these things are possible for a blind person, but the procedure and the experience is very, very different, obviously. Very, very different. So the way I'm bringing this all back home to my analogy about music theory, my personal music theory, is when somebody is blind and they're doing something, maybe they're making a sandwich, they're going to make a sandwich, they're also going to arrive at a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Maybe it doesn't look as neat, but it's going to be a peanut butter and jelly sandwich at the end of it. Now, the procedure at which they arrive at a peanut butter and jelly sandwich is probably going to be quite different than the procedure I take when constructing a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. But we more or less get to the same place, and it's still a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Now, when I'm making music theory, in a playing role in my compositions, a good example of that would be Liminality. I'm going to use Liminality, which is a track I've made, for this example because it's the most recent thing that I've composed. So this song. So just this part of the song, I'm going to take just that segment. I think if somebody knew quite a bit of music theory, they would say that this song is in 3/4. I probably wouldn't say that. I would say that this is a waltzy song, which is two ways of saying basically the same thing. Saying a song is in 3/4 is maybe a little bit more theoretical, mathematical way of saying what rhythm the song is in. Me saying the song is waltzy is just kind of saying people could waltz dance to this. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So, two different ways of arriving at the same conclusion. Now, that's a very, very small way in which my personal theory would differ from somebody that had, trained ear, musical training in music theory. Now, it gets a little bit murkier when I'm thinking about the chords that I'm using. Because to me, this chord. Wow. So when I'm listening to those chords that I just played, to me, this chord is the same as that chord. So these first two chords are the same. Chord 1 is the same as this chord. That's a weird one. This is the same chord as the first two. Weird chords. This is the same chord as the first two. This is the same chord as the first two. This is the same chord as the first two. This is the same chord. This is a different chord. This is the same chord as the first two. Da, 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 da. This is different. Same. Anyways, when it comes to using theory to make up those songs, a lot of what I'm doing is just taking a one chord I know how to play, and I'm just moving it down the piano. But somebody that had music theory would say these are all different chords. This chord isn't, A whatever. This chord is a G something. This is an F, this is a diminished this. People would have maybe a little bit of a different way of arriving at those same things. Something really interesting about rhythm when it comes to like some of the older things that I've done that get a little like math rocky. I know that they have numbers attributed to them. There's a thing called a tuplet or quintuplets, which is like 5 beats in the same measure. I don't know what that means. I don't care. But I do have songs that'll have like a weirder time signature. Something that I really like doing is trying to think of a good example of that now. This one? Start at the beginning of that and I'll play it a little bit slower. This. I know something weird is happening there. Now, do I know what the theoretical term for it is? No. But I know that this rhythm goes 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. It's built out of threes. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Now something weird happens at the end, right? Because it goes 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Sorry. See, this is why I don't know music theory. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Oh my god. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. The counting makes no sense. The counting makes no sense to me when I count it out. From a feel, that makes perfect sense. When I think of it as just a rhythm, it makes sense to me when I just think of it as like just an absent rhythm. Maybe it only makes sense to me because I listened to a lot of like gent rock or math rock or death metal when I was in high school, and so a lot of those like weirder rhythms make sense to me. And a good example of that is there's a song called Blue Rondo a la Turk. There's a song called Blue Rondo a la Turk on I think it's by Dave Brubeck, and its rhythm is. It's really, really weird. It doesn't make sense to me from a theoretical standpoint. Now, I know all rhythm makes sense. When I say all rhythm makes sense, I mean that basically all rhythm can be expressed in a mathematical way. In the same way that there's kind of formulas for everything, right? There's a formula for making waffles, and there's a formula for building a nuclear weapon. Science and math kind of govern a lot of, or explain a lot of things. Now, for me, since I don't have that theoretical, mathematical, scientific knowledge of music and the theory surrounding it, I have to apply my own kind of loose, very physical and more intimate applications to these things. So even though I know there is a literal fraction that'll explain. Even though I know there's a mathematical equation that will explain what I just played, for me, I go off of just feel and mood. And I know that I can play it in different modes, not modes, because modes is also a musical theory term, so I'm just going to say I can play in different feelings. Same chord progression, but very different rhythm. You make your own math, says Gabriel. The laws of this world aren't defined by the theories are defined by the world. If you sat and figured out how the world makes sense to you, it's valid. Absolutely, Gabriel. I say this all the time when people usually come to me with music theory. I'm like, music existed for years and ages before theory came along to try to explain it. So I don't really put too much chalk into a lot of theory surrounding music. I mean, I know it's useful, and I have dabbled in it, you know, but at the end of the day, I mean, I mostly just kind of go off a feel and my own theory that is kind of sprung up and manifested around my own compositions. Okay. It doesn't matter the definitions you arrive. The math that you made up in your head for it is valid because it works. Absolutely, Gabriel. Absolutely. This is always how I feel when it comes to music. This is always how I feel. I feel like people spend way too much time trying to understand somebody else's understanding of music. It's weird, right? It's weird. It's weird. It's weird because I know a lot of very well-meaning, music students who... Let me not say I know a lot of well-meaning music students. I know very few well-meaning music students. I know a lot of very, condescending, uppity... I know a lot of those. I know a lot of the elitist music students, but I know a few that are very, very open, and their personal philosophy or their personal ideology is hey, if the knowledge is out there, why not consume it? You might find out something really cool, and I agree with that absolutely. And that's why I have dabbled in a little things here and there when it comes to music theory. But I also think that some people will put a little bit too much weight in music theory in that they're trying so hard to understand what is essentially somebody else's understanding and analysis of music. Music theory was created by just a person. Well, a lot of persons, but it was created by humans. And so when you're trying to learn music theory, you're basically just learning somebody else's understanding of music. And you might have your own understanding of music, maybe, definitely do both, but don't let one outshine the other. He says, I was almost every music student at my school. I believe that. Music theory for hundreds of years was don't play tritones. That's the devil's work. This is true, soothsayer. And now tritones are all over the place. I think people ruin their career trying to force too much on theory, says Gabriel. They end up being so macro and away from real music that they feel bubbled and end up restricted musically. I agree with this. There is no harm in one or the other as long as it works. I think ultimately you have to be enjoying it. I mean, if you're somebody that's just creating music from your soul, you have to be enjoying it. If knowing music theory helps you express yourself, dope. If you can express yourself without music theory, that's also dope. But I think that the interesting thing about theory is whenever anybody says music theory, myself included, we're referring to this grand system that the world, or most of it, has agreed upon as being this is the way it is and this is the way it works. And I think theory should be a little bit more personal. We all have a different theory, a different way we go about things. I'm sure you guys have all been good at something in your life. I trust everybody in this stream has been good at something in their life, and at some point in you being good at that thing, you've looked across the aisle at somebody else who was also good at that thing, and they were doing it very weird. Whether this was somebody skateboarding goofy, or this was somebody playing a video game and they were using their pinky to hit a specific button instead of their index finger, and it was like, yo, what the heck is wrong with this person? Or was somebody holding their paintbrush really weird? Or was somebody driving strange with like their seat all the way up? You know. There's a lot of personal theory that goes into every action we do. Even when it comes to making food, there's a really interesting thing I thought about recently when it came to waffles. Now, you guys have seen me make waffles in my Instagram videos because I have some cooking videos on my Instagram highlights. But when making waffles, there are certain things that go into making a waffle. You know, if you were to Google like how to make waffles, when I make waffles, I make them a little bit different. Sometimes it ends up tasting the same as, you know, the other recipe. Oh crap, hold on. What is it? No. No. What's this third chord? There it is. That was gonna bother me. Anyways, yeah, like I arrive at the same thing, but I put a lot of extra stuff in it. I'd be putting like nutmeg in my waffles. Why should you put nutmeg in a waffle? I don't know, but I like it, and I haven't found another recipe that calls for it. I haven't seen anybody else doing that, so that's my personal thing for making waffles. And sorry. Anyways, that's my personal thing for making waffles. And it's my own personal theory. You all have been good at something and seen somebody else doing that thing well, but differently. And this is personal theory. A lot of personal theory is taught, a lot of personal theory is learned, but most personal theory is manifested. It's because you have certain limitations, maybe, to your body, right? A lot of times when I will do something on piano, it's because it's more comfortable for my hands. It's not because I like the way it sounds more than another way. It's just like, oh, this feels more natural to me, so I'm gonna be here. If somebody's walking a certain way, they might be walking that way because of the type of shoes that they wear. It's comfortable for them to walk a certain way, or maybe they're wearing a certain type of pants cut, you know, that makes them walk a certain way. And it has nothing to do with them getting to a place faster or wanting to look nice while walking. There's a lot that goes into informing our own specific style. And our own personal theory is what does that. I'm going to move on from this because I feel like I'm just talking to you guys to sleep. But yes, nutmeg in a waffle, Gabriel. What's nutmeg, says Gabriel? I'm thinking of nougat. What is nutmeg? It's a very good question. I put nutmeg in scrambled eggs once by accident, says Jaime. I mean, I'd try it. I would try it once. Personal theory is the real connections you make in your head. Absolutely, Gabriel. It's very personal. I have to go, says Isadora. Thank you for being in the stream, Isadora. We're getting ready to close up right now here anyway. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, however much of it is left. Thank you again. Jaime says it probably could have been, but I put too much before I realized it, and I usually put a lot of black pepper in my eggs, so I didn't even think twice. You got your black pepper confused with your nutmeg. Nutmeg is a thing that I enjoy the taste of, but I've only ever used it on French toast and waffles. Usually I'll go through a phase once a year. Well, I'll make French toast for breakfast like every day for roughly 3 weeks to a month, and then I get over it and I stop doing it. I bounce back and forth between making sandwiches for breakfast, French toast for breakfast, waffles for breakfast, breakfast burritos for breakfast, and then just like tons of fruit. I guess I don't know. I don't have a very wild palate when it comes to early morning eating. But yes, thank you for being in the stream, Isidore. We appreciate you. We appreciate you. Maddie says it's a spice that's usually in eggnog and a lot of Christmassy stuff. Maddie's right. Nutmeg has cinnamon in it. Gabriel, and for the people in the stream that don't know what nutmeg is, I know that's not really that helpful. Nutmeg is not necessarily a thing that we found in the wild and squeezed a nut, I guess, and meg came out. Nutmeg is a concoction of a few different spices, one of which is cinnamon. There is cinnamon in nutmeg. So don't think of nutmeg as a spice as much as think of it as like a seasoning, which is a combination of spices. Like seasoning salt isn't just salt. It's like salt, paprika, there's a little bit of pepper in it too, and stuff like that. Anyways, yeah, nutmeg has cinnamon in it. So if there's something that you put cinnamon on, maybe try putting nutmeg on it. It might be cool. Okay, that's it. That's it, guys. I have 2 EPs out. One's called Ego Death, the other one's called Quick Breath. I played none of the music from either one of them today, so I'm gonna go ahead and do that tomorrow as an apology for today's stream, which was mostly talking. Quick Breath and Ego Death can be found alongside my single The View on Bandcamp, SoundCloud, Spotify, iTunes, Apple Music, Google Play, Amazon MP3, Tidal, Groove, Deezer, Pandora, Napster, and YouTube. We're on YouTube right now, so if you want to see any of the videos that I've shot for any of my music, my songs, they can be found here. The most recent examples of that is my Quarantine series, which was a weekly series that was going on before my life started falling apart and I lost all semblance of productivity. So you can go check those out. They're all organized in neat little playlists. One playlist for Less Stream, one playlist for remixes, one playlist for Quarantines, and of course one playlist for morning medleys, of which this is the 163rd. This song that I'm playing right now is called Hush Hour. I wrote it while I was in Hong Kong. If you ever get the chance to go to Hong Kong, it might sound weird, but I do recommend it. I do recommend it. I recommend it as somebody that knows very little about that place, but enjoyed my time there thoroughly. I'm going to talk about that, Gabriel, because you're making a good point that a lot of people have made to me personally, but not necessarily on the stream. It's been causing me not to really be able to create a lot and be productive. Gabriel says, you are still streaming, so you can't say you lost all semblance of productivity. Now, the stream occupies this kind of weird space to me as far as my productivity and my musicianship. And when I say it occupies a weird space, I say that I never really consider this making music or even performing music. The former is a little bit more believable. The latter, it takes a little bit more of a stretch of the imagination to understand why I see it that way. The reason for that is I see this as kind of like a social update for the people in the stream. But if I had to sit here and I had to talk to you guys for an hour or 2 hours, I would lose my mind. And it's because I don't necessarily enjoy being in a place of attention and talking to a crowd of people. And even when I've had to address people at my shows or my concerts in between songs when I'm talking, I'll usually put chill chords underneath what I'm saying to distract from what I'm saying, which kind of defeats the purpose of talking to a crowd of people. I know. I understand this. Chalk it up to stage fright or nervousness or whatever you want to do. And so in the stream, I can kind of play, Love Letters, or I can play Winter Heart, or I can play Union Station, or I can play Over and Under, or I can play Around the Pond. saying you can play a lot of music, or I can play a lot of music that is already done, you know, that I've already established, even like liminality. And it's kind of like an exercise because if I didn't do this, I would get really rusty. So this is kind of like my piano practice. It's like having a practice session and rehearsal. But as far as like sitting down at my computer and being able to like make anything new, or sitting at the keyboard and being able to actually like make a new song, write new lyrics, shoot new videos like I was doing once a week, that has been very, very difficult for me lately. And so I apologize to anybody who was waiting for those things, that has been waiting for a very long time. I'm just, you know, there's a lot going on in the world right now, and there's even like some more stuff going on in my little personal world right now. So it's been taking me, you know, it's been taking me away from it. But I do appreciate everybody for coming into the streams every day. I will see you guys hopefully here tomorrow in my Thursday stream for stream number 164. Thank you guys for being respectful to me and polite to each other. I am starting to get a little busy from being hungry, so I'm going to go ahead and end this stream and go make some breakfast. But yeah, thank you everybody for being respectful to me and polite to each other. I hope you enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. Hello everybody. WD-40. Whoa. Oh, I get it.